What did the Badgers need to do at quarterback in the transfer portal? Coming up next, Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? We got me, we got Justin. This is Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Harings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we are talking portal needs, going through the roster position by position. How many impact players do the Badgers actually need to bring in? And how many guys on the roster right now do we think could start next year? We're doing that right now. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start any season you want on FanDuel.com. Your first $5 bet gets you started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, I'm excited for this show. What we're going to do is we're going to go position by position, and essentially we're going to say how many impact players do they need to bring in. An impact player is a guy who's either going to start or be part of the rotation heavily. So essentially looking at the roster right now, Justin, and saying, are there answers on the roster right now for these positions? Starting at quarterback, you got Mabry, you got Carter Smith coming in. Do the Badgers need to bring in an impact player in the quarterback position?
Yes, they do. You need somebody with experience. It can't be Braden Locke. I'm sorry. You need somebody that's capable of being at a minimum solid to being good or very good, which would significantly change the outlook of this team if you can get somebody who is a quality quarterback that can really elevate the offense.
Yep. I mean, listen, this is the Captain Obvious one. You got to bring a guy in. You got to bring a quarterback in who can at least provide stability, who can at least provide – if you could get solid quarterback play, going from what you had last year to solid quarterback play, nothing more, Justin. We're not even shooting for the stars here. We're not talking about NFL guy, just Scott Tolzien. Who's another Jack Cohn? If you can get solid quarterback play, this offense is dramatically different.
Looking at Grimes' offenses, like going historically, that's typically the type of production he's normally had. Like he's had guys that consistently are in that 18, 20 touchdowns, 7 picks kind of range, or that's what the QB room is getting. We can get by with that. If the run game is strong and you're actually a functionally solid passing team, which he's been around 3,000 yards a lot of the time, we should be pretty darn good with that.
Agreed. And we're going to tally this up and at the end kind of talk about how many we think we actually need, how many impact guys you need in the portal. The last question on quarterback, Justin, and this has come up a couple times, do they need 2 bodies? Do they need a starter and a depth guy?
I think ideally, yes, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think you take your chances that Mabry is going to be ready to be the backup and is a guy who is going to be at least solid if he could step in. We'll see with that. But I just have a hard time believing, given the way the transfer portal works now, that you're going to be able to get 2 bodies and get somebody that's going to just be like, sure, I'm going to come in and waste a year of eligibility when I maybe only have 2 and sit behind somebody else.
Yep, I agree there. Let's go to running back. I'll take this one to start off. So you got Dupree coming back, which is a big deal. You got Jones coming back, which is a big deal. You still have Gideon Atuka. And again, the point of this exercise isn't could you use more depth there? It's do you need to bring in an impact piece in the portal? I don't think you need to at running back. I think with those 3, especially if Yak stays, who he hasn't made a decision yet, I do think he's probably not on this roster next year, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need to bring an impact guy in here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that those 2 are actually going to be fairly dynamic this next year. I think they're going to be ready to roll now. Obviously it's for those 2, especially given the fact that they didn't have a spring football, it's going to be significant for them to be able to get that extra reps. And now you have 2 guys that are basically going to be repped heavily in the spring because number 1, it's a new offense. Number 2, they're the guys now, so they're going to get all the first team, second team reps, and I actually think they're going to split. Anyone who followed Kansas with Grimes, and even before Grimes was there, they had Neal and Hinshaw as their 2 running backs, and they split almost evenly with those 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Different skill sets, but that's the way they want to use them, and that's the way Grimes used them this last year. So I expect them to rotate through backs fairly heavily. I think they'll typically probably be in the 15 range for each guy is normally roughly where they were, between 15 and 20. But that's probably where you're looking for this offense. And they like to keep guys fresh and then put them out there so that they have their jets ready.
And then you're going to still have Gideon Natuka, who I think is also a nice fit for this offense coming in as that third running back.
Probably get 5 to 8 carries.
And Jackson Aker, who we talked about a little before show, could also take a few reps if necessary there. I just don't think it's an impact need. And by the way, we should talk about, there was a tweet, I think it came out today from Coach Spalding talking about Dylan Jones coming back. Listen, that wasn't a guarantee. I think people kind of know that. That's a big retention win for the Badgers.
Absolutely.
Huge retention win.
His skill set pairs so well with Dupree's.
Mm-hmm.
They have a slightly different. Dupree's a little bit more of a dancer, whereas Jones is pretty much a one-cut guy. But it's such a nice pairing. Like the backs that I always compared him to when you and I talk about it is Brett Moss and Fletcher.
Classic.
That's what you're looking at with those two. And Jones probably has a little more of a top gear than what Moss ever had, but that's the type of pairing you have. You have a guy who's really agile and a bit able to move his way through there and is really effective in space. And then you have a guy who's capable of being a hammer.
So we're on the same page so far. The Badgers need a impact guy, quarterback, nobody at running back. I'm going to let you start this one off. Tight end. Do the Badgers need to pick up an impact tight end in the portal?
I actually think very much so. I think they were fairly productive at that position this year, but if you have somebody who's capable of being a plus player at that position, I think you have to go out there and do it. And by plus player, I mean, we're talking like let's go out there and get somebody that get us 40 catches, 30 catches out of that spot and make it a effective spot. And Grimes' offense likes to use the tight end. It will be interesting to see if Acker gets used more as an H-back in this, because I could really see them using him in that role. He's got the speed and agility to be able to do it, and he's a great blocker. So they may flex him out and do some things with him rather than using a traditional tight end for a lot of stuff. Because Kansas had undersized tight ends. Like they didn't have 6'6" guys. They had guys who were probably 6'2", 6'3" max. So similar to kind of what we were running out there last year, but guys that could really block. And I think that's where Acker really is most effective.
Yeah,
he's a good receiver too.
He's a good receiver. Acker can really catch the ball. I would preface this with the point of, if you can improve, you always do it. Like if there is a really good tight end that in the portal falls in your lap, please, go ahead and get them. I don't think it's a priority though. So I put a 0 on this one because I do think you're going to get growth from Steck. I do think you're going to get growth from Ashcraft. I like the young pieces in Seagreaves and Magana. I do think there's pieces here. And you talking about Steck, who was a 4-star tight end, one of the better tight ends in the 2024 class coming into his sophomore year. So to me, it wouldn't be a priority, especially when you look at some of the other needs in the class. And we know that you need to prioritize NIL to some degree.
Yeah.
So I went 0 on this one. I said no on this one. But again, I definitely hear your point on it. If you can get a guy that dramatically upgrades the room, I'm not against it. Mm-hmm. But I do like the young talent on this team. And I think
do too.
Hold into it next year, you'd be okay. Yeah. All right, let's go. I broke up the next one into tackles and guards. But actually, let's take a quick break. We'll get into offensive alignment next. So we're getting into, again, do the Badgers need to add Riley Mullman coming back? Do the Badgers need to add to that offensive line in the portal? Then we're going to get into receivers, defensive line. Where did the Badgers actually need to add transfer impact talent? That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. We're going to keep Justin on for this one because Justin has experience here. Omaha Steaks. It is gifting season. Justin, tell us about Omaha Steaks.
Well, Rajiv got me a set of these a couple of years ago. Bacon wrap tenderloin, yes, please, every single time. You wrap anything in bacon, and I'm good. But it was really good quality steaks. The burgers were good. Everything that I got out of the kit that he got me I just had a really great experience with. So I'll take that over the grocery store. No offense to my grocery store, but I was really happy with the quality that I got out of that.
Absolutely love it. And right now, you can be the gifting expert. Get 50% off omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Minimum purchase may apply. Again, legendary steaks, mouth-watering desserts, save more than 50% off site-wide. Be the hero. Be the 5-star gift giver this holiday with Omaha Steaks. You got Justin's seal of approval. That's a man that likes to eat. I like to eat. We like steaks. Go get it done at omahasteaks.com. All right, let's come back into this. Let's talk offensive line. Justin, I broke this up into tackles, guards, centers. Let's start with tackles. Do the Badgers need to add an impact tackle in the portal?
No. I think you feel comfortable with Mullman, and I think we think Haywood's going to come in and hit the ground running. And by running, I mean like a semi coming downhill with no brakes. I actually expect him to play at a very high level already as a redshirt freshman.
I did too. I think this was one of the easiest ones for me to look at and say, Hallman. Haywood is a left tackle. Pencil him in for this year, next year, and then pencil him into the NFL draft. We are so solid there. And I think Malman was fine last year. I know it was a little up and down, but sometimes when the entire offense is up or down, it's hard as like one player to individually stand out. He's a good run blocker. He's going to come back for another year, put more senior film on for the NFL. I think you're fine. And you have, that's a great point. You have a second year of Blazek coming in there to help coach him. I think you're totally fine at tackle. Guard is more interesting to me. I had guard down as one. I think you could really use another guard here. And my reasoning is you're going to have Brunner. I'm good there. You and I talked about this before the show. I think ideally Emerson Mandel as a redshirt freshman, or as a sophomore, slots in. Redshirt freshman. He didn't play 4 games, right?
I think he was exactly 4.
Okay.
So I don't think he went over.
Yeah, either way. So redshirt freshman coming in, you would love for him to be a starter. I'm just not sure the fact that they had him at tackle in fall practice. I'm not sure if you can count on him to be a starting guard year 1 in that spot. So that's where I think you really use another guard to help that interior depth, and also maybe a guy who can play some center if Renfro were to get hurt.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I just trust Blazek there, and if he thinks the room is solid, it's such a hard position to really evaluate because we have no clue, and we didn't really rotate through guys this season. We pretty much started the regular offensive line the entire time, unless we got to late in the game against Purdue and Rutgers, and then you're breaking in just the young guys. There's no pressure on them. I trust that they're going to have guys ready. So to me, it would be a position that I look at and I'm like, I think internally you probably have somebody that you feel confident can be effective. And I'm not sure what type of quality you're going to find in the portal. And somebody who hasn't worked with your staff and understands what you're trying to do too.
And then at center, I'm assuming we're on the same page with center. You're good with Renfro coming back. You're not adding an impact guy there. Okay. Let me shift you to receiver. I'll let you go first on this one. Receivers, obviously coming back. You lost Tretch, which we all know about. You still have CJ. You have Quincy, Pauling. Again, the portal's open now, so write this in with pencil. CJ, Quincy, Pauling, Tyneberry Johnson, Eugene Hilton will be coming in the 25 class. You have Vinny Anthony as of now, Chris Brooks as of now. Do they need to go to the portal, get another receiver, and if so, how many?
I think you're fine if you don't get somebody, but in my ideal world, if you're looking for somebody who can be a plus player, and that's what we're talking about here, I think you'd like to go out there and find somebody who can get you 700 yards and 45 catches. I don't know how easily that's going to be identifiable, but I think worst case, if you can't find it, I do think that there's talent in that room. I don't think that it was done much of it really helped out well with Braden Locke at quarterback. I think that room would have showed better had they had somebody that could consistently put the ball where they needed to be and on time. But right now we don't have anybody other than Vinny that I think we look at that we trust going into this year.
Which that last sentence is why I put a 1 on this. Yeah. I think you got to get somebody, because even Pauling, man, like Pauling
was way too many drops.
But he was so inconsistent last year. And then Vinny, like, we love what Vinny did. And again, we're assuming that if this group stays together, but Vinny's not really a true 1, because you saw when Penn State said, we're not going to let you beat us. They kind of eliminated Vinny Anthony from that game. Now, some of that, you're totally right. Some of that's Braden Locke, some of that's Phil Longo. The passing game was broken, but also some of that is because this team just didn't have another receiver or two that can help. So I think
it wasn't afraid of our speed
at all.
And that's what you need. You need somebody opposite Vinny that can actually run too.
Yes. Which is why I think you need one. I don't know if you'll get one, but I think you need another body in this room to up the talent level, up the physical skills. I think you have a bunch of guys in here who kind of feel like C+, B- guys. If you can get another B+ guy, I think it helps everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go. We're switching to defense. Go to defensive line. And again, it's a little tough because we're not fully sure. Yeah, defensive line, right? Do we need?
Can we get 10 guys?
Can we just get everybody, please? It's tough because we don't fully know the new vision. We know that this defense is going to be shifting. I think it's going to be kind of a 4-2-5. It's going to shift into that mold. But
I think.
Go ahead.
My gut instinct on this is it's either going to be a 3-3-5 with that what they're calling a outside linebacker, basically being a 4-3 defensive end that maybe stands up some.
The overhang.
Yeah. Or you're going to have a legit 4-2-5. I think it's going to be either one of those two things. Either way, they're going much heavier, which means you're going to ideally want a guy who's capable of playing the edge that also offers some pass rush.
How many bodies do you think they need here? Like again, and I
know we're looking at ends. I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that like the position that you truly need are your two nose tackles. Like you need two guys there that are capable of absolutely blowing up the middle. And that's 300-pound plus guys. Like I know you have some freshmen coming in that you think are going to give you some reps, but they're not going to be able to start and they're not going to hold up. So you need a couple of 300-pounders that can actually at least plug. Like they don't have to be disrupted, but you need guys that can at least hold a point in the middle.
Yep. I wrote down 2, and it's for that exact reason. And again, like this isn't necessarily starters. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it's starters and/or guys that can play heavily in a rotation. And that's what the defensive line is. You need 2 waves. You need multiple guys you can cycle in because people get hurt, they get worn down. You're playing Iowa, you're just going to get beaten the heck up. Mm-hmm. I think they need 2. Can they get them? I don't know. They got 2 last year. They got Hills and Lane, and Hills was great. I think you got to shoot for 2 again this year, and you hope you hit on them. To your point, it's those interior guys you need them. You lost Kurt Neal, James Thompson Jr., who was at least a stout defensive lineman's gone. Jamel Howard is like you and I have talked about, man. If he could take a step from not playing for the last 2 years to competent,
yeah, I'm gonna be honest when it comes to him. This is his year. Like if it doesn't happen this offseason where he gets locked in and reshapes himself and truly commits himself to things, it ain't happening. Because now you're going to be a redshirt sophomore, and you're going to start getting recruited over. Like Pavey and Xavier are coming in. Those guys aren't coming in here to sit behind you. Like they're coming in here they want to play day one. And those guys, quite frankly, from a pedigree standpoint, are probably a little bit further up the totem pole.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, to your point, I think you could get a few reps from Pavey year 1, a few reps from Xavier year 1. It's not going to be something.
It's going to be like 10 snaps. Yeah. Like you're not anything more than that.
Yep. All right, let's go. Next one up is outside linebacker. I'll start with this one. I went 0. Listen, you get Daryl Peterson back. You get Heiberger back. You get Lafayette back. You still have Sebastian Cheeks, who I thought flashed at that spot. You still have Aaron Witt as a guy who can at least set the edge to some degree. That's 5 bodies, man. And 3 of them are young players that you want to play. I don't think they need to go out and get an impact guy on the outside.
Yeah, it's tough for me because in my ideal world, I'd like somebody that has some known production. Because my biggest fear is that this room is just dead air again. It will kill this defense if they cannot get any disruption off the edge. You got to have somebody that can get you 5 sacks, 6 sacks. Like I'm not talking Herbig getting 10 sacks off the edge. You've got to have somebody that's at least can get some pressure. And they did not have that remotely enough. That was underlying big problem that was there. It wasn't just that they didn't get sacks. It was that they didn't get pressure either. So quarterbacks never felt uncomfortable, and that led to very few turnovers. So it's tough because the upperclassmen that are in that room, I don't trust any of them to really be super productive. And it's putting a lot of pressure on Heiberger and Anelu and potentially Clayton if he comes in and hits the ground running, to be guys that can actually cause a little bit of havoc out there. I would probably say 1.
Okay.
I would like a body here of somebody that can come out there that they can identify at least as a pass rusher.
I think the concern there is the same one we had last year. You bring a couple of those guys in, and then they play above the young, and then they play above the underclassmen.
Yeah.
Like I do think this is where you got to start trusting those young pieces.
Yeah. And that could be, and that's one of those things where spring ball will probably tell us a lot. Right. But do you do that before you get to that point? Because that's where you get stung. Like if you're afraid, we'll find out. I mean, it's frustrating to me to look at this because of the fact we didn't see those guys get any reps. And I look at it and I'm like, well, what does that mean? You were talking about these guys potentially playing a little bit, but then we never saw them. So now I have to sit here and think that you don't fully trust these guys to actually be what we need them to be. And that's why they weren't out on the field, or at least flashing late in the season. That makes me a little leery of where we're headed here.
No, it's a good point. It could be that they didn't see enough there to play them, or it could be what we talked about, where there is enough there and you feel beholden to the upperclassmen to play them more.
Or they were just afraid of mistakes already dooming a defense that was kind of already struggling. It's like, we can't get worse. Like, we're already, like, at least we're not making big mistakes, but we're kind of, it's kind of, what's the best way to put it for the defense?
That's by 1,000 cuts instead of just giving up.
That's exactly what it was. Like, you weren't able to threaten an offense at all. It was basically like you wanted them to make their own mistakes, but you weren't going to force them into mistakes. And I think that we were worried that if some of these guys get out there, maybe they blow contain or whatever, and suddenly you're giving up a 20-yard run, whereas at least the other guys were staying in their lanes for the most part.
But it's so hard when you watch those other guys, and I know we talked
Absolutely.
about they can't get contained because they're not fast enough. Like, I will say this. I would put this, to me, outside linebacker kind of in my tight end category, where if you find an obvious guy that can upgrade the room, go get him. If not, I kind of want to see the young guys there.
Yep.
All right, we're going to take a break here. We're going to get back to inside linebacker. I'm going to ask Justin if he's good with Allegro Tackett next year, or if he thinks another body needs to be there. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over on FanDuel. FanDuel remains the number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. FanDuel is incredible, the fastest, simplest, easiest way for all your sports betting. Futures, parlays, teasers, spreads, it's all over there. The official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, the official sportsbook of the NFL, the official sportsbook of Ryan Harings. I talked about it before. FanDuel's simple. It's easy. It's safe. It gives you that warm fuzzy when you have money in there that it's sure, not going to go anywhere. It's not like those. When I first started sports gambling, it was in some crazy offshore accounts because nothing was legal. And I'm sure that was funding some European Russian war.
That was like my old Texas Hold'em days.
Yeah, like that money was funding some Russian military endeavor, I'm sure, at some point. That is not proven. I do not want to get sued or get tracked down by anybody. However, FanDuel is safe, secure, easy to use. Go over to FanDuel.com. $5 bet gets you $150 in bonus bets for first-time users. If you win, that's over at FanDuel.com. Spice up your weekend over at FanDuel.com. Okay, Justin, let's talk inside linebackers. You got Tackett Curtis coming back. Christian Allegro, we love. You got Tyler Jancey, potentially Landon Gauthier's in there. Where do you feel about inside linebacker? Do you need an impact rotational guy there?
I don't think so. I think you're hoping Tackett grows, but I also think that Mason Post is going to be really hard to keep off the field. So, and I think Tyler Jancey gives you a really solid player that is kind of a brute out there. So I actually think they're going to feel pretty good about that room.
Yeah, I originally
take a step overall, and they're just an effective unit.
I think I agree with you. I originally went 1 on this because I haven't been fully sold on Tackett, but I actually like the numbers there. I like Tackett. I like Jancey. Gauthier's a solid player, and you're right on Posa, and Allegro's a star. I don't think they need to add there. I agree with you. Let's go cornerback. I put 2. Because here's the thing. It's not that I don't think Agard can step up this year and be a slot guy. We both were really high on him coming out of high school. He didn't really play last year. It's not that I don't love the potential combination of Hallman and Lucas. It's just that gives you 3 bodies.
Yeah.
You're going to start 3 corners.
That room cleared out. We lost so many people. They need depth. They need experience depth.
You need experience depth badly, right? Because otherwise you're counting on Scott, Washington. You're counting on the 25 kids to come in and be ready right away.
The room would get really rough if they got an injury there.
I think you need 2. I think you need 2 experienced corners. They don't have to be starters, but I think you need 2 experienced guys.
I agree with that.
Okay. How confident are you really quickly on the corners in one of the freshmen playing early? And who would that freshman be?
Oh, it's Washington to me. I don't know how I feel about him doing that. I think athletically he's fine, but from a technique standpoint, I just think it's such a jump from high school to college. Agard's a guy who, if we had to throw him out there and throw him into the fire last year, I would have felt pretty good about him. I don't think anybody's the pedigree of him in terms of coverage skills. So I would be a little bit more leery of any of these guys because, let's be honest, you're going against a junior or a senior wide receiver, and you're somebody who's a true freshman. Unless you're an absolute machine, you're probably going to get toasted out there.
Yeah, I don't feel great about any of them. I want to be super clear. None of these are Xavier Lucas walking in the door.
No.
Is it weird if I don't think this will be ultimately the best of this group? Is it weird if I think Kairos Gaines is maybe the best option to play a little early? He's kind of the truest boundary corner. He's got the size. He tackles really well. I kind of think he might be the best option early. I don't know.
He scares me as a guy that does he know his limitations and will he be able to effectively play within himself? Because I worry about people getting over the top of him.
Oh, people run by him a little bit. Yeah. He's going to have to play smart.
Yeah, and that's where I worry. Jamari Washington's got a little bit more raw physical ability, where I think that he'll be able to do some things in that regard. But I don't necessarily like when we talk about death by 1,000 cuts, that's kind of what I feel like would happen with him. Yeah. I think he would cover fine, but sometimes fine's not good enough. I made the play after the guy caught the 10-yard in. You know, you can't consistently have guys beating you because I just don't think that he can just dominate somebody.
Well, I think that'd be true for any of the freshmen, but you are right. Washington is a better physical athlete. There's no doubt there. Let's finish off here with safety. What do you got for safety? How many impact guys do they need to have there?
3, maybe.
Right? Like, so what do you feel good about
safety? Room's in really rough shape right now. I think Austin Brown's obviously a starter there. Is Zachman done? Or is he Zachman's
a redshirt senior, so he's done.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to think of what other bodies are even in that room.
I got you right here. This is what I got at safety right now. Right now in the depth chart, this is what I have. And again, the portal's open, so write this in with pencil, everybody. I got Austin Brown, Owen Arnett, Raphael.
He's probably the other starter right now.
And Owen Arnett flashed a little bit in practice. He's a little undersized, though, not a great athlete. And then you have Raphael Dunn, who kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Guy from last year's class, 6'4".
What I'll say about Arnett, though, is he's playing the same position that Austin Brown was.
Mm-hmm.
They were both playing that nickel safety position. And I don't know, like, they're not really diversified there with those two. Raphael Dunn would be interesting, but I just don't know if you feel confident enough in him to be playing him as a redshirt freshman.
Possible any of the freshmen here. So this is where those DBs, you have Remington Moss, Grant Dean, Luke Emmerich would be kind of the safety options to me, or Scott.
I think that there's a chance that one of those guys that they are football players. Both Emmerich and Dean look like football players. I think they're going to require a little polish, but they both seem really heady and they both seem to have good instincts. And I think it's going to be how quickly they take to the defense and really understand what they're supposed to be doing. Both of them coming in early, I think.
I think so, yeah.
That's going to be huge for them. Is can they get their feet wet and can one of them take to the position quickly and be able to do it? Physical tools aren't going to be a problem. I would say, man, Dean needs to put some weight on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they need him to be a legit 195 by the time they get done with winter conditioning. And he's like 180 right now. Like he's got to bulk up. I'm not sure where Emmerich's at from a body weight standpoint. He's a little bit bigger than Dean though, too, isn't he?
He's a little. I think he's about 185.
Okay.
He's got to get a little bigger, but I think one of those guys is playing, and I think it's going to be Emmerich, and because he is fast. Like he's a guy you could, if he can pick it up, you can put him kind of deep middle and let him just cover sideline a little bit. But I
think both of them are. I mean, Dean's a 10-8 guy.
Yeah,
like I actually think that they're probably roughly about the same speed. I don't fully trust that 10.69 on Emmerich because he wasn't able to repeat it. But
I don't either.
But I think the 10.8, I think they're both roughly in that 10.8, 10.9 range, which is plenty of speed for a safety.
Yep. And they both hit, especially Emmerich, which is why I kind of feel like he could be that player. He shows that physicality a lot on film. He shows the speed. He's got good size. But either way, you need at least one body here, probably two, right?
Yeah. You want experience depth. You don't want to be going in with guys that have nothing under their belt.
Let's shift to the only other position I listed, because you're not going to bring in a punter because obviously he's a stud. He's coming back.
Machine.
Yeah, you're not gonna out recruit Atticus Bertrams, but kicker. No, Vakos is a junior coming in. He still is going to be on this team, but he was legitimately terrible last year, and that's
I think you have to bring somebody in to make him earn it at least, and prove that he can be better because he was downright terrible last year.
Yeah, and here's the numbers: 63% field goal conversion rate. That ranks outside. So this chart I use is CFBstats.com. They list the top 100 field goal kickers in the country last year. He didn't make that list.
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot.
130 teams, so he's in the bottom 30 kickers in the entire country.
Yeah, you can't have that level of inconsistency at quarterback, man. So I agree with you. I don't know who you find, like, because Vacos came in as a heralded kicker. Miami of Ohio, he was a good kicker, and Ohio, it wasn't Miami, it was Ohio Bobcats, and he just fell off a cliff, man. But you got to bring in somebody to challenge him because you can't. The funny thing is, though, 2 years ago he wasn't bad at Wisconsin either. A year ago he wasn't bad, so he's had 2 good years and 1 bad year, and maybe the coaches look at that and write last year off as a fluke potentially. Justin silently nodding for those listening.
I mean, they need him to be a high-level kicker, and like his first year was really good. His first year with Wisconsin was solid. It wasn't great. Like, he was much better as a true freshman at Ohio, and I think you'd like to see him get closer to that because he struggled from distance his first year at Wisconsin. They need, and ironically hit everything over 50 yards that he did this year, but was awful under 40. So we'll see what they can do. They need him to be far more consistent on his shorter kicks. He needs to be over 80%. Like, he just has to be. Like, that's the bare minimum for a college kicker to be considered solid to good, in my opinion. It's higher. It's a lot higher than that in the NFL. Like, you need to be a guy that's in the upper 80s if you want to be considered a good kicker in the NFL.
Well, in his first year at Wisconsin, he was at 78%. So he was right near that benchmark his first year. And then last year he just fell off a cliff. All right, here's my last question for you. Then we're going to cut it. We're pretty close on our numbers going through all the positions. I think you're 1 tick higher than I am because you went tight end and I went 0 there. So I had 11 guys, that when you add up all the numbers, you have 12. How realistic is that the Badgers find 11 to 12
starters?
Quality starters or rotational pieces. It's tough.
They better do a better job evaluating this cycle than they did last cycle. It's possible. You're probably going to bring in 15 guys. I would be shocked if they didn't bring that many in the transfer portal. That means you could potentially miss on 3.
Yeah, it's tough. Realistically, that's not going to happen is kind of my point.
But you need people that are at least playable. Like, you can't afford to have somebody that's a net negative putting them out on the field. Ideally, I would say if you bring in 15 guys and you can get 6 or 7 that are quality starters for you, that's a huge bump for this team.
Agreed. And especially when you consider what happened last year. How many guys off last year's cycle would you call quality starters? Certainly Elijah Hills, Tyree Walker. I feel like he's a quality starter. I mean, I don't know if he should.
He was limited. I mean, he was just kind of there. Like, he averaged 4.7 yards a carry or whatever it was. Like, I don't hate Tyree. It's just I look at it and I'm like, would you be able to win us a football game? And I don't necessarily know that he's capable of being a guy that can have that type of game to win you one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm going to count him in my quality one, but your point is definitely noted. He's not like a home run hit in the portal. Pius and Lowry, I wouldn't really like.
No, they were awful.
You got nothing there.
They were negative players in my opinion.
You got nothing there.
The outside linebacker room in general is below average, in my opinion. Like, the bulk of college outside linebacker rooms are significantly better than what Wisconsin put out there.
I agree. So my point is, last year you probably got 2, if you want to count Tyree, right? Unless am I missing somebody? Delancey? So the point is,
didn't play enough for, like, he wasn't noticeable. I guess he was a rotational player, but I don't know, like,
not great. Like, so the point is, what you're saying, if you get 6 or 7 in this cycle, you're tripling what you did last cycle. Like, you have to be better at evaluating hitting, and
especially the defensive line. Like, you need to hit on 2 guys.
Yep, I agree. He is the great Justin Jolka. I am Ryan Harings. This has been Locked On Podcast. Locked On Badgers on the Locked On Podcast Network. Go tune into the Locked On Big Ten channel and the Locked On College Football channel after this. Go check out all the latest stories on their channels on Wisconsin. A bunch of content coming up this week. We will talk later.